Hello, welcome to School with Mrs. Hooker. I am located in Iowa, which we talked about yesterday, and I have my map here. Iowa is right here. So Iowa is located in the Midwest, is what we call it. It's the middle of the state and it's on the western side, so it's called the Midwest. So those states in the middle on the west side are called the Midwest states. In order to find Iowa, you need to look for the head of the man. And some of you are probably saying, what is she talking about? So let me show you. If you look at the map of the United States, that's the country that we live in, you will see a man hiding in the map. And you can usually find him by his boot. If you look down here, bloop, there's a boot. The boot is Louisiana. Can you see it? That's his boot. You come up and you see his pants. Arkansas is his pants. Then you come up to his shirt and his belly right here. So he's looking at you from the side like this. And then right above his shirt is his head, Iowa. And you can see his nose right here and his chin, the back of his head. And then his hat would be Minnesota. And he's wearing a big tall hat. So if you ever can't find Iowa, remember to look for the head of the man and it'll help you find Iowa. Well, this is day 2 of Mrs. Hooker's house school. And we are going to be learning about a lot of different things today. I went ahead and put them at the top of our board so we could just kind of be prepared for what we're learning today. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to read a story about a little girl named Ruby Bridges. Then for math, we're going to be working on money. And then for social studies, if you remembered, I told you we're going to talk about leaders and what makes a good leader, so those qualities. Let's go ahead and look at what today is. Today is, oh, I forgot to do the time. Guys, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry. First, we need to talk about what time it is. So the time right now is 10 o'clock. So it's a.m. Mrs. Hooker made this video this morning instead of like I did last night. I made my video in the p.m. because it was after 12. After 12 o'clock would be p.m. Anything before 12 o'clock is a.m. So 10 o'clock. 10 is the first number I say, which means it goes on the first hand, which is the hour hand. The hour always comes first. How you can remember that the hour hand is shorter than the minute hand is that the word hour is shorter than the word minute. And so when you think about hour, you can think, okay, hour is shorter than the word minute, so the short hand is the hour hand. So you want the hour hand to be pointing at the 10 and the minute hand to be pointing at the 12 because it's 10 o'clock. Whenever we are on the 12, we say o'clock. So basically what that means is it would be 12:00. It's the beginning of the 12th hour. 5 minutes later, it would be, oh, not 12 o'clock, sorry, 10 o'clock. Even teachers mess up sometimes, especially teachers. We mess up all the time. So it's not 12 o'clock, it was 10 o'clock. So 5 minutes after 10 o'clock would be 10:05. 10 minutes after 10 o'clock would be 10:10, 10:15, and so on. Remember we talked about yesterday how it's important that you know how to count by fives because every number we count by fives on the clock to tell what time it is. So right now it's 10 o'clock. You might be watching this video a little bit later than that, and so I encourage you to look at the clock and try to read what time it is and see what time the clock says, and then double check on your parents' phone to make sure that that is the right time that you thought it was. Alrighty. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about what day it is. So the month is March. We have a capital M on March because March is the name of the month. Remember, any name gets a capital letter at the beginning of it. The day is Tuesday, and we have a capital T on Tuesday because Tuesday is the name of the day. The date is the 17th. So you can see that Mrs. Hooker did my 10s and my 1s. So the 17th gets 1 10 and 7 1s. Then you have 2 nickels. That would be 5, 10, and 7 pennies. So 5, 10, and then 7 pennies would be 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So then that equals 17 cents. The year is 2020, and we talked about that yesterday, how we represent 1,000 with a cube, and then we have our hundreds, which there are none in the number 2020. Then we have 2 10s, and then we have 0 1s. You may notice that Mrs. Hooker is wearing a bright green hat, and I don't normally sport this hat except for one day out of the year. And that day is St. Patrick's Day, which is today. So you might have noticed my shamrocks and our day of the month that has a little shamrock on it. That is because March 17th is St. Patrick's Day. Now, you might be wondering what St. Patrick's Day is. Some of you may know a little bit about it. We usually know that you have to wear green on St. Patrick's Day, and that there's usually 4-leaf clovers. Sometimes people talk about leprechauns and other things like that on St. Patrick's Day. But what is St. Patrick's Day, and where did it come from? Well, St. Patrick's Day was named after a man named Patrick, and Patrick had a very interesting life. In fact, Patrick was kidnapped at the age of 16. So they took him from his home and his family to Ireland, where he was a slave. A slave, it means that they did, when he went to that country, they were not nice to him. And he was made to work without getting paid. And he was made to do things that most people would not have to do. It was a really rough life, and he didn't get to see his family or his friends. He was a slave. He had to stay there and do what they said. So you can imagine how hard that must have been for him at only 16 years old, so he was very young. And he was able to escape. Escape means he was able to get away, and he ended up going to school. And he went to school to become a priest. A priest is like a pastor, or some people might call them a father or something like that. What it means is they're the leader of a church. And so St. Patrick went to become a priest, and when he was done, he actually went back to Ireland and became a missionary there. Now, a missionary is somebody who goes around and tells people about what they believe, and then also they help people. So they're really big about making a change in the world and trying to help people become better versions of themselves. And I don't know if you caught that, you guys, but he was kidnapped and brought to Ireland, and then he decided to go back to Ireland to help people. The same country that took him and made him into a slave, and they were not nice to him, and he went back and helped them. Isn't that really interesting? I mean, that takes a certain amount of bravery. Bravery is having courage or being able to do something that's really hard to do. And St. Patrick was one of the men who did that. He had bravery. And we're going to actually learn about a little girl later in a story who also had a big amount of bravery. So one last thing I wanted to tell you about St. Patrick is the reason why he had a shamrock. And Mrs. Hooker actually just found this out today. I was researching about St. Patrick's Day before I came on to talk to you guys, and I found out why we have shamrocks. So a shamrock, or a four-leaf, or a clover is what they're called, is a plant that you find outside, and you guys we have them in Iowa. You can find them in the grass or along the ditches and different things like that. You'll find clover. And there are a lot of times you'll see clovers like this, and this is a four-leaf clover, which is really rare. You don't normally see those. But what St. Patrick used was not a four-leaf clover. He used a three-leaf clover to talk to people about what he believed. And so I told you he was a missionary, and so what he believed was he believed in God, and he would tell people, he would hold up his clover, and he would tell people that each leaf stood for the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And that is a term that went with what he believed. And so that was really neat. I didn't know that about the clover, and that is why they have clovers out on St. Patrick's Day. It's because he used those to tell people about what he believed. So that's a really interesting thing that Mrs. Hooker didn't know, and now you know. So now you're smarter from that little tidbit. And if you already knew that, well, good for you. So we're going to put that back right here. I always tell my students that when they find a new fact, they need to go home and tell their parents so their parents can just know how smart they are. So you have to make sure you share that fact with somebody so you can help them become even smarter. So we're going to go ahead and move on here to our story in just a minute. But before we do, we need to visit somebody very important, and that is Walter. He has not eaten yet today, so we need to go feed Walter really quick. So come with me, and we will feed Walter. I was also looking up some interesting facts about goldfish today. And some of you may have heard the fact that goldfish only have a memory of 3 seconds. A memory is what you keep in your head. So the things you remember in your head is your memory. So I have heard that they only can remember things for 3 seconds. So that's 1, 2, 3. And that's all they remember. And every 3 seconds, they forget everything they ever learned in the first 3 seconds. So I was looking up facts about goldfish, and I found out that is not true. That goldfish actually have a memory span just as long as us, that they can remember things from 3 months ago or even longer. And in fact, you can train goldfish to do tricks and to remember when they're supposed to eat their food and all sorts of things. So the fact that I had previously learned was proven wrong, and goldfish can actually remember quite a lot. So let's take a look at Walter. And we're gonna go ahead and feed him. Say hi, Walter. So today we're talking about brave people, and Walter is kind of a brave fish. He has been all over the country. Walter was with me when I was in college in Ames, Iowa, and then he drove, like almost 20 some hours to Arizona with me when I moved to Arizona to become a teacher. And then he drove back with me back to Iowa. So he has been all over the place. Walter has just probably seen more of the United States than any other fish. So that's kind of cool. An interesting fact about Walter and his bravery with all the trips that he's been on. So like I told you, today we're going to talk about a young girl. And I told you the name of our story is The Story of Ruby Bridges by Robert Coles. And this young girl was very brave. She was born in a time where not everybody was accepted for who they were. And She was on the front of changing that, and her bravery helped make a big difference in many people's lives. I'm sorry guys, I flipped the camera over too, hopefully. I was sideways for a minute. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and read the story of Ruby Bridges by Robert Cole. While we're reading the story today, I want you to be listening for a couple of questions. The first story I want you to listen, the first question I want you to listen for is, why was Ruby Bridges important? So what about Ruby Bridges was so important? And then the second question I want you to listen for was, how did she help change our country? So if you have a piece of paper and a pencil and you want to use that while you're listening and write down the answers, if you hear them while they're being read, that's fine. Or you can just enjoy the story and then afterwards answer those questions, okay? The story of Ruby Bridges. Ruby Bridges was born in a small cabin near Tylerton, Mississippi. We were very poor, very, very poor, Ruby said, and my daddy worked picking crops. We just barely got by. There were times when he didn't have much to eat, and the people who owned the land were bringing in machines to pick the crops. So my daddy lost his job, and that's when he had to move. I remember us leaving. I was 4, I think. In 1957, the family moved to New Orleans. Ruby's father became a janitor. Her mother took care of the children during the day, and after they were tucked in bed, Ruby's mother went to work scrubbing floors in a bank. Every Sunday, the family went to church. We wanted our children to hear God's Spirit, Ruby's mother said. We wanted them to start feeling close to Him from the very start. At that time, black children and white children went to separate schools in New Orleans. The black children were not able to receive the same education as the white children. It wasn't fair, and it was against the nation's law. In 1960, a judge ordered 4 black girls to go to 2 white elementary schools. 3 of the girls went to McDowell, and 6-year-old Ruby Bridges was sent to 1st grade in William Frantz Elementary School. Ruby's parents were proud of their daughter and that she had been chosen to take part in this important event in American history. They went to church. We sat there and prayed to God, Ruby's mother said, that we'd all be strong and we'd have courage and we'd get through any trouble. And Ruby would be a good girl, and she'd hold her head up high and be a credit to her own people and a credit to all the American people. We prayed long and we prayed hard. On Ruby's first day, a large crowd of angry white people gathered outside the Frantz Elementary. The people carried signs that said, they didn't want black children in the white school. People called Ruby names. Some wanted to hurt her. The city and state police did not help Ruby. The President of the United States ordered federal marshals to walk with Ruby into the school building. The marshals carried guns. Every day for weeks that turned into months, Ruby experienced that kind of school day. She walked to Frantz School surrounded by marshals, wearing a clean dress, a bow in her hair, and carrying her lunch pail. Ruby walked slowly for the first few blocks. As Ruby approached the school, she saw a crowd of people marching up and down the street. Men and women and children shouted at her. They pushed toward her. The marshals kept them from Ruby by threatening to arrest them. Ruby would hurry through the crowd and not say a word. The white people in the neighborhood would not send their children to school. When Ruby got inside the building, she was all alone, except for her teacher, Miss Hurley. There was no other children to keep Ruby company. No one to play with or to eat lunch with. But every day, Ruby went into the classroom with a big smile on her face, ready to get down to business of learning. She was polite and she worked well at her desk, Miss Hurley said. She enjoyed her time here. She didn't seem nervous or anxious or irritable or scared. She seemed as normal and relaxed as any child I've ever taught. So Ruby began learning how to read and write in an empty classroom and in an empty building. Sometimes I'd look at her and wonder how she did it, said Miss Hurley. How she went by those mobs that sat there, those mobs and sat here all by herself and yet seemed so relaxed and comfortable. Miss Hurley would question Ruby in order to find out if the girl was really nervous and afraid, even though she seemed so calm and confident. But Ruby kept saying she was doing fine. The teacher decided to wait and see if Ruby would keep on being so relaxed and hopeful, or if gradually she would begin to wear down, or even decide that she no longer wanted to go to school. Then, one morning, something happened. Miss Hurley stood by a window in her classroom, as she usually did, watching Ruby walk toward the school, and suddenly Ruby stopped. Right in front of the mob of howling and screaming people, she stood there facing all of the men and women. She seemed to be talking to them. Miss Hurley saw Ruby's lips moving and wondered what Ruby could be saying. The crowd seemed ready to kill her. The marshals were frightened. They tried to persuade Ruby to move along. They tried to hurry her into the school, but Ruby wouldn't budge. Then Ruby stopped talking and walked into the school. Persuade means that they were trying to get her to move along. And then budge means to move. So Ruby wouldn't move. When she went into the classroom, Miss Hurley asked her what happened. Miss Hurley told Ruby that she'd been watching and that she was surprised when Ruby stopped and talked with the people in the mob. Ruby became irritated. That means upset. I didn't stop to talk to them, she said. Ruby, I saw you talking, Miss Hurley said. I saw your lips moving. I wasn't talking, said Ruby. I was praying. I was praying for them. Every morning, Ruby had stopped a few blocks away from the school to say a prayer for the people who hated her. And this morning, she forgot until she was already in the middle of the angry mob. They've used that word a couple times, mob. That means a group of people, usually that are angry or upset. When school was over for the day, Ruby hurried through the mob as usual, and after she walked a few blocks and the crowd was behind her, Ruby said the prayer she repeated twice a day before and after school. Please, God, try to forgive those people, because even if they say those bad things, they don't know what they're doing. So you could forgive them. Just like you did those folks a long time ago when they said terrible things about you. And that's it. So Mrs. Hooker really loves this story because it is about a young girl who was the age of some of you, and she went to a school where she wasn't allowed to go at first, and she was brave even though people were shouting and angry and hateful towards her, even though nobody else was in the school because they didn't want to go to school with her because of the color of her skin. And she went ahead and went anyway. And instead of being hateful or angry towards those people in her school, she was loving and kind towards that mob of people, towards the students who didn't come to school. She made well wishes for them and wanted them to be forgiven for being so hateful towards her. being able to forgive people who are mean and hateful towards you takes a huge amount of bravery. And bravery is something that we saw in St. Patrick, who came back to Ireland where he was a slave and where he was hurt to help people. Bravery is something that we see in police officers who go out to places that are scary sometimes and they go to help people. Bravery is what we see in doctors and nurses who are around people who are sick and who could potentially get them sick, but they don't care because they want to help those people. That is bravery. And bravery can be a small act or a big act, but it still takes a big act of your heart to do it, because it's overcoming your fear and what scares you and choosing to do what's right and helpful to others, just like Miss Ruby Bridges did in this story. So I asked you at the beginning a couple of questions. I asked you, why was Ruby Bridges important? Now, I don't know if you caught all of that in the beginning of the story. I'm going to let you take some time to think about it. You can pause the video and think about, why was Ruby Bridges important? And I would love it if you would write down the answer. Remember, when you write down an answer, you need to do so in a complete sentence. So since the question was, why was Ruby Bridges important? The complete sentence would be, Ruby Bridges was important because, remember that you need to end it with a period, begin it with a capital. So Ruby Bridges, capital R on Ruby, was important because, and then I want you to tell me why. Also, if you want, you can always, in the comments of this video, write your answers to these questions with your parents. If they let you, you need to ask permission first. So Mrs. Hooker can see what you think about the story and about these answers. Maybe you have a different answer than me. So go ahead and pause the video, write that down. All right, so here's what Mrs. Hooker took from why Ruby Bridges was important. So at that time in Mississippi, they were still segregated. Segregated means separate. Just like my hands right now, they're together. This is separate, okay? Segregated was separate. So they had a separate school for people that had white skin and a separate school for people who had black skin. Is that okay? No. Right? We're all people, no matter what color our skin is. And that is how the rest of the United States felt as well. There is a law that said there should be no segregation, but Mississippi didn't follow that law. And so, because of that, there was a judge who decided that things needed to be different. And so he passed a law that said these students could go to this school. And 3 of them went to another school, and Ruby went to, the name was Fredericks, I think? The school that Ruby ended up going to. Let me double check so I don't tell you wrong. Oh, sorry, it was France Elementary School. So, Ruby was a part of changing the law of segregation in Mississippi. She was showing children that it did not matter the color, and not just children, but adults too, because that's mostly what those angry people in the mob were. They were grown-ups. She was showing them that it did not matter what color your skin is. Everybody should get to learn, and everybody should learn together. And that's important. It's important to love each other and learn together, and be able to learn about other people, no matter what color their skin is, no matter how tall or short they are, no matter how funny they laugh, all of those things that you need to be able to understand that person for who they are. And that's what Ruby was trying to prove. She was trying to prove that it did not matter how she looked, that she should still be able to get to go to that school. So that's what I think when I hear that question, why was Ruby Bridges important? How did she help change our country? I think that kind of goes with the first question. I think I kind of answered that. I think she showed extreme bravery. I think she showed the country that if a little girl can be brave enough to, in the face of all these yelling grown-ups and in the face of an empty school, be able to stand tall, go to school, and learn and do the right thing, that everybody else could too. And that this was possible, and that these laws in Mississippi were silly, hateful, hurtful, and they needed to change. And they did. Okay, so with that being said, I want to talk about a time that you were brave like Ruby or like St. Patrick. So Mrs. Hooker's sentence stem for today, I'm going to move it so you can see, is I can be brave by blank. So how can you be brave? I would also be okay with you writing a time that I was brave. So you could do I can be brave by, or I would be fine with you writing a time that I was brave. So you could either write how you could be brave, or you could write about a time that you already were brave. Now remember, brave means that you stood up for what you believed in, or that you did something that was scary and you stood tall and you did it anyway, okay? In the face of fear, of being scared, you did something big and brave. So for instance, Mrs. Hooker has one I'm going to share with you. So you need to have your paper and pencil, and you need to write down your sentence stem and then write your answer. And I'm going to share with you mine. So a time when I was brave was last year when I had to get my wisdom teeth taken out. That's what I wrote. So Mrs. Hooker had to go to the orthodontist, and they had to take out my wisdom teeth, and they had to give me like an IV with medicine to put me asleep, and I do not like needles. I was so scared, and I really did not want to do it, but I knew I needed to be able to be healthy, and that it would help me in the long run, and it would help my teeth. And so I went ahead and I went in and I did it, and I was brave. And you know what? It was not that bad. So, and afterwards I got to eat a ton of pudding, and it was great, and mashed potatoes. So I was happy. But that was the time that I was brave. So when you are done writing your sentence, the next part of the assignment I want you to do is to then draw me a picture that represents that time. So you can see Mrs. Hooker did her complete sentence up here. I ended it with a period, started it with a capital, and then I drew a picture of me. So this is a picture of me thinking about getting my wisdom teeth pulled out, and you can see I'm kind of nervous. But then I went ahead and I was brave, and I went in and got it done. Okay, so pause the video, and I want you to go ahead and do that assignment. Alrighty, so now we are going to go ahead and move on to our math. And Mrs. Hooker has a really fun activity. I forgot to tell you at the beginning of the video what you needed for class today, and I apologize for that. So you are going to need some sort of container because we're gonna make a little craft later. So you can always pause the video when it comes time, when I explain it a little more, and get one of those. You're also gonna need scissors, tape, and blank piece of paper, crayons or markers, or colored pencils, okay? All right, so sorry about that. So yesterday we talked about money, and we talked about touch points. And today, as I told you at the beginning of the lesson, we're going to be talking about money again. And we are going to be digging a little bit deeper into it and counting out some money today. I'm also going to teach you a fun game. And like I said, we're going to do a craft too that kind of goes with money. So there is a money song or poem that is about how to remember how much each coin is worth. And so Mrs. Hooker printed it out for you guys. And if you want to, you can find this on the internet. You just type in the money song. So if mom or dad want to print it for you, or you want to copy it down, you can, or you can always pause the video and copy it down from this paper. But I'm going to go ahead and read it to you now. So the first one is the penny, and it goes like this. penny, penny, easily spent, copper brown and worth 1 cent. So remember that the penny is copper brown and it's only worth 1, okay? Next one is the nickel. Nickel, nickel, thick and fat, you're worth 5 cents, I know that. So remember the nickel is worth 5 cents, and when it gets a touch point, it's the donut touch point. 1 touch point in the middle of the nickel, and we count the touch points by 5. So we would say 5 when we count that one, and the nickel is worth 5 cents. The next one is the dime. Dime, dime, little and thin, I remember you're worth 10. And remember the dime has 2 touch points, 5, 10. So the dime is little, thin, it's worth 10. The last one is the quarter. Quarter, quarter, big and bold, because it's the biggest. You're worth 25, I'm told. So the quarter is worth 25 cents. It's big and bold, and it gets 5 touch points. Remember, it has 2 ears, a nose, and 2 feet. And I forgot to say the dime, those touch points, we would say those are the eyes. So let's count the touch points on the quarter. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So what happens, and we did this a little bit yesterday, is when you have a handful of coins in your hand, how you can do the touch points is you just touch the coins. So let's start with the quarter. And we're going to see how much all of this is worth together. And we did this already yesterday, but we're going to do it again. So it should be 41 cents like it was yesterday. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 41. So that's how we do the touch points. I have a story that we're going to read really quick that is just going to show us a little bit more about money and how it relates to other money. One, 2. And we're going to go all the way to 99 cents. 3, 3 pennies. 4, 4 pennies. 5. Okay, so 5 pennies equals 5 cents, or you could do a nickel. 6, 6 pennies, or you could do a nickel and a penny. 7, you could do 7 pennies, or you could do a nickel and 2 pennies. So remember the touch point, 5, 6, 7. Okay. 8, 8 pennies, or you could do a nickel and 3 pennies. 9, 9 pennies, a nickel and 4 pennies. 10, ooh, look, there's 3 different ways that you could do 10. You could do 10 pennies, 2 nickels, or you could do a dime. These are just 3 of the ways. There are a couple other ways too. 11, 11, they showed a dime and 1 penny, so that'd be 10, 11. 12, so that would be, ooh, I didn't do that touch point right. Did you guys catch that? Let's go back and do that right. We have to touch this twice. So that would be 5, 10, 11. 5, 10, 11, 12. 13 has our dime and 3 pennies, so that would be 5, 10, 11, 12, 13. 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Make sure you're counting with Mrs. Hooker. By now I feel like you guys have got this, so you can count along with me. Make it interesting. You could even count in a funny voice. Try to make your parents laugh. All right, this next one is 15 cents. And so we have 2 nickels, so that would be 5, 10. Oh, I lied. Those are 3 nickels. I don't know why I missed all that. 5, 10, 15. Okay, this next one is a dime, so you hit it twice. 5, 10, and then you hit the nickel once, 15. We have a dime, a nickel, and a penny, so 5, 10, 15, 16. Over here we have a nickel, a dime, and 2 pennies. 5, 10, 15, 16, 17. 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18. All right, and Miss Hooker, we're gonna skip ahead to 25. So we have nickels up here, and there are 5 nickels, Then in this row we have 2 dimes and a nickel, and in this row we have a quarter. So let's first count the nickels. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Okay, now let's count the dimes and the nickels. So remember, the dimes you touch twice. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And then the quarter you touch 5 times. The ears first, the nose, and the feet. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And then we're going to skip ahead to the last one, which is 99 cents. And it is 3 quarters, 2 dimes, and 4 pennies. So here we go. Are you ready? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99. So that's the different ways that you can count money. Now we're going to do a little craft, and then I'm going to show you a game that you can play to help you remember how to count money, or help you learn how to count money. And also, it's a fun game to play with mom and dad, or your brother or sister too, or a friend if a friend comes over. So this is what we're making today. Oh, I don't know if you can see it. There it is. Okay. So this is a piggy bank, and a piggy bank is something you keep your money in. And so mine says Mrs. Hooker's Coffee Fund. You could say my talkie fund. A fund means what you're saving your money for, what your money is used for. You could say my book fund, or my mall fund to go shopping at the mall, or my Squish Delish fund to buy Squish Delicious or LOLs, or to buy more Legos, or whatever it is that you want to shop for. You make a little piggy bank and you can put what the money is for, or it could just say my piggy bank. And we're going to decorate a piece of paper to be whatever you like. You could do little polka dots like I did. You could do stripes. You could do Minecraft squares. You can put stickers on it. You can put string on it. You can do whatever you like to make it pretty and to make it yours. You don't have to use white paper. You could use construction paper if you want to. It's totally up to you because it's your piggy bank. So what Mrs. Hooker did was I took an oatmeal container, or a steel cut oats container, and I cut a little square out of the lid, and that's where the money goes into. So you're going to need a container. It doesn't have to be like this. You could use a tissue box as well. You could use a Gatorade bottle because those do have a bigger top. And then the little top is very hard to cut, so you would maybe just put a tissue or piece of paper on top and then tie like a rubber band around that to keep it all in there. But if you do find a container with a plastic lid, ask your parents to cut the square for you, because it is very hard to do, and you could definitely cut yourself if you're doing it. So you need to ask a grown-up to help you cut it, and they can get that cut out for you. If you don't have a grown-up around to cut that for you, you can choose to use a piece of paper on the top instead, kind of like what I said with the Gatorade bottle. You can cut out a square from the piece of paper first, and then you can put a paper around the top with a hairband like this, and that's a little bit safer than using a pair of scissors to cut the plastic lid on your own, okay? So now I'm going to show you what you're going to do to make it look pretty. So you're going to cover this all up. So what you're going to want to do, ooh, and another thing, a Pringles can would also work really well for this. If you have a Pringles can too, that would work as well. So you're going to decorate a piece of paper however you like. Write the name of whatever you want to be on the front of your container on your paper, and then go ahead and decorate it, make it look pretty. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the paper after it's decorated, and you're simply going to wrap it around the container and tape it on the back with a piece of Scotch tape. Or any kind of tape. If you don't have Scotch tape at home, any tape would work. Or glue in a pinch would work as well. and then you're gonna put your lid on top and you have a piggy bank. So you can do that after the video, or you can pause the video and make it now. That is totally up to you. So as you can tell, Mrs. Hooker has some money in my piggy bank, and you're going to need some money to play your game today. You don't need a whole lot of money, but you do need some change. So you can ask Mom and Dad if they have a jar of change somewhere, or you can look under the couch, in the couch cushions, in the washer or dryer, on top of the washer and dryer. Those are all places in Mrs. Hooker's house where I usually find change. Look under your dresser. You can look in the car, in the little glove box. Sometimes there's change in there. So once you have some change, you're going to put it into your piggy bank. And then we're going to play a game called Coin War. And so what happens is you need 2 people to play, and you both dump out 6 coins. So you have your little square up here, and you shake out 6 coins. So Mrs. Hooker, okay, I shook out my 6 coins. So I got a penny. Oop, I lied. Sorry. It's not a penny, that is a dime. A dime. A penny. Another penny. A nickel. Another nickel. Also, I want to show this to you. There are 2 different types of nickels. The new nickel looks like this. My students, when we get back to school and we take the money test, they have a picture that has this nickel on it. And it looks a little different from the other nickel. Which looks like this. Just so you know, they're both nickels. They just look a little different. And sometimes the quarters look different too on the backs because they're state quarters, and we did talk about that in class. Those of you who aren't in my class, there are different types of quarters for each state. In fact, here's one right here. This is for New Hampshire, and it's a little scene of the mountains and trees. And normally there's an eagle on the back of a quarter. So don't let that trick you. Just look at the front. If you're a little confused on the quarter, if it has George Washington's head on it, then that means it is the quarter. It also says $quarter on the bottom too, which would help you. Okay, so once you have your 6 coins, both of you, you are going to count them up. Whoever has the most wins the war, and they get to keep all the money. So now keep, that depends on whose money it is. But for the sake of the game, what I mean is whoever has the most money at the end of the game is the winner. So, but here's the trick. Once you count up your money and you decide who had the most, they get to take that money for that round. They don't get to take all of your little pot of gold off to the side. They just take that money for that round. So for instance, right now, Mrs. Hooker has 5, 10, here's a dime, 15, 20, here's a quarter, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 46, 47. I have 47 cents. So if I was playing against somebody and they had 50 cents, then they would have beat me. So they get to take this little 46 stack of coins. So the 46 cents they get to take. Now remember, you only shake out 6 coins each, okay? And so whoever has the most, they take the coins for that round. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If you shake out exactly $1, so you shake out an amount of 100 cents, $1, then you get to take all of their coins. So their whole stack of gold, all their money, you get to take. And then at the end of the game, you're going to count up and see who won. How you know the game is over is when all the coins are gone. And that is how you end the game. Does that make sense? All right, so go ahead, take some time and play this game. It's super fun. It's a good way to learn how to count your money and to just have fun with your family and your friends and get to play a cool game. All right, so moving on from money. Sorry, you guys, my Apple Watch was talking to me. Okay. Moving on from the money, we are going to go ahead and move on to social studies. So I talked to you earlier about leaders. I talked to you yesterday about communities and how in communities there are leaders. And I told you today that we were going to discuss what makes a good leader. And then tomorrow we'll go in more detail about the different types of leaders that there are. So Mrs. Hooker has this paper right here, and it is an acrostic. An acrostic is where you take a word and you put it long ways, and then each letter stands for something. Okay? So the word is leadership, and each letter in leadership stands for a quality. That means something that someone has that makes a good leader. So the first trait of a good leader is loyalty. When I think of loyalty, I think of my dog Nina. So my dog Nina is loyal to me. That means she sticks beside me. If I fall down when we're walking, she comes and sits right next to me and waits till I get back up. She's loyal. She follows me around everywhere. I know that I can trust her to be there for me. So she would be loyal. E stands for empathy. Empathy is something that you have to someone, that you show. So if I have empathy, if somebody fell, an empathetic person would go and help them up and make sure that they're okay. So an empathetic person, someone who has empathy, wants to make sure that people are okay. They want to help other people. They want to take care of other people. They want to show love. That's empathy. A stands for accountability. Accountability means that I can count on you. If you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. So if Mrs. Hooker says, I want you to bring your math book to school tomorrow, you're accountable to bring it. Then I am counting on you to bring that book. It is your responsibility. And if you're an accountable person, you're going to bring your math book to school the next day. The next one is duty and determination. What that means is that you are going to get things done, okay? You work hard and you try your best to get things done. If you say you're going to do something, you do it, and you do it well, and you do it to the best of your ability. And you're determined to see it through. Okay, the next one is E for energy and encouragement. So what that means, energy, is being excited, being ready, being able to do something. If you don't have a lot of energy, you're just kind of dragging around, right? You don't really want to work very hard. You don't really want to do your stuff because you just don't have very much energy. Okay? The next one is encouragement. So encouragement is where you cheer somebody on. So if you show somebody encouragement, you're saying, good job, keep going, you're doing great, push through, you've got this. That's encouragement. The next trait of a good leader is respect. Someone who shows respect is kind and caring and considerate to other people. A respectful person is not hateful or hurtful. They listen to what other people have to say, and they're kind about it. So respectful. And I'm sure that's respectfulness is something we talk about in school a lot. Selflessness is S. So selflessness means that they don't think about themselves. They try to think about other people. So when they're doing something, let's say they're making a sandwich, and they get their peanut butter and jelly sandwich done, and they notice that their little brother is so hungry. He didn't eat breakfast. So instead of eating that peanut butter and jelly sandwich for themselves, they're selfless, and they say, you know what, I had a really big breakfast, and I had a snack earlier. I'm really not that hungry. I'm going to give this to my little brother because he missed breakfast, and I know that he's really hungry, so I'm going to give him my sandwich. That's selfless, helping others before you help yourself. So being kind to other people. Honorable and humble is for H. So what that means is that you are not all about yourself. So it kind of goes with selflessness. To be humble means that when somebody says, oh, you did so good on whatever it was, like let's say they said, you did so good on your math paper. And you say, thank you. That's what a humble person would say. Someone who's not humble would say, I know I did good because I'm awesome. I do good on everything. In fact, the other day when I was roller skating, I did a backflip, triple spin, and I was the very, very best. Okay, so that's not humble. That's the opposite of humble. That would be bragging. The next one is integrity and innovation. So integrity means that you do what is right, and innovation means that you're coming up with new thoughts, new ideas, and you're trying to really just bring new things to the table for people to do. So for instance, someone who's innovative would be very creative, and they would think of fun examples and fun things to do in class. So if Mrs. Hooker said, we're going to do a project and we're going to build a musical instrument, somebody who is innovative would think, you know what? I bet I could build a really cool musical instrument out of a tissue box. And if I added rubber bands to the front, it would almost be like a guitar. And then, even better, I could add the paper towel tube to the top to make the neck of the guitar. And then I could add really cool craft paper to the outside to make it look really nice. And that would be an innovative person. So they're thinking about how to make something even better than it already is. Okay, and the last one is P, and it stands for passion and pride in their work. So passion and pride is, so if you have passion for something, it means you're so excited to do something. You just cannot wait to get out there and do it. You love what you do and you want to do it well. You have passion about something. A lot of my kids have passion about Minecraft in class. They love Minecraft. It is something that they enjoy doing. They do it very well. They can build things on Minecraft that are just amazing, and they are passionate about it. And they could talk to me about Minecraft all day long. For instance, Mrs. Hooker, I'm very passionate about school and teaching, and it's something that if you got me talking about teaching, I could talk to you about it all day long. It is something that I am passionate about. And then a pride in your work means that when you complete a task, when you do something, you're proud of it. Just like some of my students, we did an egg drop experiment the other day, and when they dropped their egg, they built a little contraption to keep their egg safe. And when they dropped it and their egg didn't break, they were so proud. They were so excited that they were able to make something that kept their egg safe. So that was showing pride in the work that they did to protect their egg. So these are characteristics of a good leader. All of these things are something that a good leader should possess. Now, I want you to think about all these things I mentioned, and I want you to think about somebody who has those traits. Someone that you know in your life, or maybe that you know from TV, maybe you haven't met them in real life, but somebody that you feel fits all of these traits of a good leader. And then on your piece of paper, I want you to write one person that I know is a good leader is. Go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to write this sentence. One person that I know is a good leader is. Okay. And we're going to finish off with a poem today. And today was a long class. We have a whole hour worth of class today. Shorter than normal school, but still pretty long. So we're going to finish up, and then you'll be done for today. So this poem is again by Shel Silverstein. I have his whole book. It's called Where the Sidewalk Ends. It's full of wonderful poems. If you see it and can buy it, I would really encourage you to do so. But this poem is called Listen to the Mustn'ts. Oh, and before I read this, I wanted to loop back for just a second to this. One person that I know is a good leader. If you can't think of somebody, I want you to think about what we learned today. So we learned about St. Patrick. He was a good leader. He helped other people, and he showed these characteristics. And then I also want you to think about Ruby Bridges. She was a good leader. She was a good leader to all the other students on how they should treat other people, right? And she showed these same characteristics. So if you're not sure about who a good leader is, just think back about today and who we learned about, because I feel that both of those people that we talked about were good leaders. Okay, now to our poem. So this poem is called Listen to the Mustn'ts. Listen to the mustn'ts, child. Listen to the don'ts. Listen to the shouldn'ts, the impossible, the won'ts. Listen to the never haves. Listen close to me. Anything can happen, child. Anything can be. I'm going to read that to you one more time. Listen closely. Listen to the mustn'ts, child. Listen to the don'ts. Listen to the shouldn'ts, the impossible, the won'ts. Listen to the never haves, then listen close to me. Anything can happen, child. Anything can be. So when I picked that poem today, I picked it because I thought it really matched what we talked about today with bravery. Sometimes we feel, or we're told, that we can't do something because it's too scary, or it's too hard, or it's too big for us, or something like that. And I just want to encourage you to remember these stories today and to be brave, and to remember that anything is possible in time, with hard work, with the right mindset, so thinking the right way. You can do anything that you put your mind to. I want you to have a really good day today. I want to encourage you, if you get the chance to, especially my kids in the Midwest, I know it's a little cold, but I want you to put on a coat anyway, and I want you to go outside for at least 10 minutes. 10 minutes of sunshine a day is so good for you. And it's really important for your health. With being stuck in the house for 4 weeks, it's super important that you go outside, because the sun gives you vitamin D, and that is really helpful for keeping you healthy, and it also just makes your heart happy. So put on a warm coat, ask your parents first, and go outside and play ball, or race your brother and sister, or something like that. But go outside and play for a little bit. See if you can find some fun things around the yard that had been buried under the snow all winter. And yeah, just have some fun. My friends who it's warmer outside where you live, I'm sure you're already going outside, but just remember to turn off the TV, go outside for a little bit. That sunshine is really good for you, especially with all this sickness that's going around. It will really help you feel good. And then finally, this last bit is for parents. So kiddos, you are done. You can go. For my parents, I had a couple of people ask me about videos for older kids, and if I had any resources. So I would just suggest, and I'm not affiliated with them in any way or anything like that, but Khan Academy, so it's khanacademy.org, and they have great resources for high school students and elementary students as well, and really good websites to practice and work on subjects, from addition and subtraction to calculus. So, they have everything. History, art, science, social studies, math, all of it. So